All right, here with Bill Peters from Auburn Records, right?
Yes.
WJCU also.
Yes.
Welcome, Bill.
Hello.
Thanks for coming out and
Thank you for inviting
talking to us, man.
me. I just finished playing golf.
Yeah, a lot of people are doing that in Ohio right now.
I'm like Alice Cooper, you know, the rocker that golfs.
A lot of rockers
Alice
golf.
is a lot better than I am, though.
Do you golf?
Not on purpose. I used to golf, but it didn't go real well. I spent too much money, and I ended up drinking more than I golfed.
That's all I ever do when I golf.
I'm not one of these serious guys. I'm pretty good, but I just play for fun, you know, the exercise.
Yeah, it's fun to get on the golf
cool
course.
being out with nature.
Walk around.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to have you here because we've done several radio interviews together, of course, but that's more like short form conversation, and this is kind of more long form. And I'm excited. Motorcycles. For those who don't know, we're out on a porch right now. So if you hear motorcycles go by, that's why.
Motorcycle man.
It's too nice to be inside.
Where's Biff Byford?
If I had one, I'd be out on it.
Yeah, you know, me
It's
too.
beautiful.
I used to ride a motorcycle.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, most people don't know that. That was before social media years.
Harley?
No. I did a lot of dirt bike. I did road racing.
Right on.
But, yeah, I was in a wreck. Somebody turned in front of me, and my bike was an accordion. I flew over the car, and
I was just talking to Paul about that.
that kind of shook me up.
That's the only thing that's stopping me from getting a bike because they look really fun and it would be fun to ride. But I'm scared to death of all the people on their cell phones and driving now.
Oh, it's crazy. I want to ride again, though. I'm going to do that again soon.
Yeah.
It's on my to-do list.
Wear a
That
helmet.
was back in my 20s.
Just
I
wear a
used to
helmet.
ride my motorcycle to the radio station
Yeah.
carrying vinyl albums in a backpack
Really?
right through downtown Cleveland. Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Well, I recently saw an old vintage ad for, they used to have record players in those old Cadillacs. Like they play the little 45s.
Did they really?
Yeah. It's really neat. It looked like a little CD player, but it's vertical, and it just went right into the dashboard.
I couldn't even imagine having a turntable in my 98 Honda Civic. It would be bouncing like crazy.
Yeah, it couldn't have been good.
My
Right.
cassettes even skip.
It had to have skipped.
In Ohio, potholes, fucking shit.
Yeah, yeah. Flat tires, scratched records. Fuck. That would be bullshit. So, I'm always excited to talk about the, I get a little nostalgic even though I wasn't around in the 70s. Like, me and Paul have had conversations about how deep-rooted rock and roll is in this area in Cleveland. I think you're a good guest to talk about that because you kind of grew up in the 70s and got to experience some of that.
Right.
I've heard a lot of stories. And what do you remember, like, your first memories of what made you want to be immersed in the music world?
Oh, sure.
Probably
I
concerts.
mentioned Alice Cooper earlier
Hell yeah.
about golf. Well, Alice Cooper was my childhood idol, you might say, musically. The first song I remember hearing was School's Out back in 1972 when it came out.
Yeah.
They would play it on the radio, and you got to remember back then there was no internet, social media. Information was not instant like it is today. It's kind of hard. I tell this to my kids, and they can't believe it. Well, didn't you just Google search Alice Cooper online? Well, you couldn't do that,
No.
you know? So I would hear this song come on the radio, and, you know, I thought Alice Cooper was a girl. You know, I mean, I didn't know. I mean, I was only like 12 years old, and the song was great. And I go, man, that girl sounds a lot like a guy singing, you know? But I always thought it was a girl until a couple months later, after hearing this song for a while, I was in a grocery store with my mom, and there was an issue of 16 magazine in the magazine rack, and it was a feature on Alice Cooper. And he was on the cover with all the gore and the guillotine, the blood. I mean, I looked through this magazine, and I couldn't believe it. You know, for months I thought all along this Alice Cooper was a girl, but not only was he a guy, but he was super cool. You know, with all this stuff on stage, I was hooked right from then. So I immersed myself in Alice Cooper at a very young age.
Was that your first live show?
No.
First live
Actually,
show.
my first live show, and again, it's different. Nowadays, younger kids go to the shows. They go even sometimes alone or with older kids. Back in those years, you know, you didn't go to a show alone in your teen years, usually. Most people, your parents wouldn't let you go. My first show was not until 1977 at Chippewa Lake Park, amusement park, down in Medina County. They used to have live bands playing in the summer, and I went to see the Rubber City Rebels, a punk rock band from Akron.
I've heard of them, yeah.
And I loved the mid to late 70s punk rock scene.
Dead
really,
Boys.
Yeah, Dead Boys, Rubber City Rebels, the whole English thing with the Sex Pistols, Damn, Clash, Stranglers. I really got into that stuff. So the Rubber City Rebels were my first actual concert I went to.
Are they still around?
They do some reunion shows once in a while.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're an active band.
I think the Dead Boys just did a reunion show not too long ago.
Right, but Stiv Bators passed away, the singer.
Oh, has he?
I saw the Dead Boys at the Cleveland Agora on their We Have Come For Your Children tour, 1978.
Wow.
And Stiv hung himself on stage during a song, Son of Sam. I thought it was the coolest thing,
That is cool.
Yeah. So Alice Cooper is really what got me into music. And when I finally had a chance to meet Alice Cooper, I used to work, well, we can get into that a little later, but I worked at Warner Brothers Records for 26 years. So I met a lot of artists over the years. I used to take our customers and accounts backstage to meet the artists at the shows. The only time I was ever nervous, to meet an artist was Alice Cooper, because he was my childhood idol. And I didn't meet him until, I think it was 1986.
Oh, wow.
He did a comeback tour, and an album was called Constrictor. And he did a pre-album promotion at, I think it was the Statler office tower down where WMMS was.
Okay.
And I went down there, and I couldn't get into the luncheon, but one of my friends was there with a camera. He said, let's go down. Maybe we can meet him in the lobby, So we're standing there, and they're in there having their lunch with all the VIPs. And finally, one of the owners of the Record Exchange, the two brothers owned the Record Exchange, John and Rich Shahinian, and Rich was in the lunch, and he came out, and he saw me there standing in the lobby, and he couldn't believe I was there. He goes, what are you doing here? I go, oh, I was just trying to meet Alice Cooper. He's like my all-time favorite artist. He goes, oh, yeah? He goes, I'll go in and get him and bring him out to you. I'm like, what? So he did. He brings him out. And Alice talked to me for like 5 minutes, got a photo with him, and he was so nice. I was so hoping he wasn't going to be a jerk.
Yeah.
That would have just crushed me.
Yeah, I know how that feels.
So I was nervous meeting him. I just was hoping he was going to be a cool guy, and he really was. And I told Alice that he was the reason that I got into the music business, and made it my career. And he said something about, oh, don't blame me for that.
He's like, I'm sorry.
It's a rough business.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure it was rough when he started and all through the 80s.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The different eras of the record industry it just really has changed a lot.
Yeah, big time. Well, it's
what it is today. I don't even know what it is today. But
yeah, if it's even a real thing. I think there's like 2 companies that own everything now, aside from the smaller indies and the European labels,
Right. Back then, the labels, had marketing staffs and sales staffs, and that's what I did here in Cleveland. I started in the warehouse unloading trucks, and the way I got the job, and those opportunities aren't here anymore for people to get into the music business. Cleveland used to be a big, spot here for music.
Yeah, big
we had
time.
all the major labels had offices, warehouses here, hired many people.
No kidding.
And I went to Myers Business College after high school, and I paid my own way. I worked in a factory. I worked at Big Boy. I was like the only guy at the college paying cash. In fact, when I'd go in to pay for my classes, they never knew how to handle my cash transaction.
Really?
At the office. Yeah.
Even back then.
Everybody was getting grants and loans and all this free stuff, and I was paying my own way.
You were doing it right.
So about a year and a half in, and by the way, I had a 3.909 average, which I'm very proud of,
Wow,
especially
genius.
working 2 jobs. And you know what? I'll tell you what. I was paying cash for those credit hours, $75 at the time, very expensive. But it was my money, and I was like, man, you know what? I'm going to do good in school because I'm paying cash for this from my working money.
Yeah.
It really meant something to me.
Yeah, right.
I really spent a lot of time studying, but I started running out of money because those costs caught up to me. And about a year and a half into college, I went to the guidance counselor. And most people, you got to remember, at this business college, which has been around for 100-some years downtown, they were accountants and, business people. I mean, that's all that was really going to this school. And I told the counselor, I said, I was interested in the music business. And she never had had anyone come to her to say that. And she didn't know what to do as far as finding me a job, So she told me this story later. She went home and she pulled an album out of her collection. I think it was a Neil Young album or something. Anyways, it said Warner Brothers on the back. So she looked up Warner Brothers in the phone book, and sure enough, they had an office here in Cleveland. So she called him up and said, one of my students is interested in a job. Do you have any openings or internship or anything? And they said they had an opening in the warehouse unloading trucks. So she set me up with the interview. I went there. They hired me. I stopped going to school. I didn't tell her, but I ran out of money. I couldn't go to school.
Right.
So that's how I started. That was 1981.
Wow.
And I worked there over 26 years.
And when and how did Auburn Records come about? It was probably a few years later.
Yeah, everything kind of, it all kind of connected together, my life in stages. And, everybody today, it seems like a lot of people today, not everybody wants instant gratification. Kids graduate from college and they want to be the vice president of the company. They don't want to work their way up. I worked my way up from the bottom, and everything networked together. It was really kind of cool. First was Warner Brothers, and I got experience working there for a year or so. And also, I got a job at the college radio station, WUJC, which was volunteer work. But it started in 1982. 1981 was Warner Brothers. Then a year later, I got my own air shift on Friday night on WUJC, and I was just a fan. I just listened to college radio in my high school years.
It was probably pretty big back then, too.
Yeah, huh? I called up, and Mitch Kapka used to be on Saturday mornings with his show, and I would listen. I listened to all the college state. WCSB 89.3 FM was my first station I got into. But I would call Mitch up, and just make requests, talk music with all the DJs. And one day he said something about, hey, you want to stop down here? He goes, you can and bring a few of your records with you. I'll let you go on the air for a little bit, like a half hour. And I was really into the new wave of British heavy metal back then, Venom and Raven and Saxon and
Maiden, of course. Yeah. Of
course, Iron Maiden. And all that stuff was cutting edge, And Mitch really wasn't too up on all that stuff. But I brought my import albums down and still in the bags. I took great care of them. I brought them down to the station to meet Mitch, and he let me go on the air. I'll never forget this. The guy, he brought these expensive import albums. So he pulls out of his pocket this gold-plated stylus. It was like, wow, this dude carries around needles in his pocket, record player needles. And he said,
original hipster right there.
He said since this was a special occasion, he was going to put the gold-plated styluses on the turntable for me. So we played the music. We took phone calls. I just loved it, talking to these people about the music and the bands, and I was hooked.
Yeah.
And Mitch said, I asked him about getting a show, and he said, well, in the summer, he said, we usually have some openings. He goes, just sign up and take the course. And he goes, maybe they'll give you a shift for the summer. That's how it all started. So 1982, I started the radio show. I got my show, and this was before WUJC. I was at WBWC, 88.3 FM, Wall and Wallace. I went through the whole course, and I did a demo tape, and I was playing all this obscure new wave of British heavy metal.
Was it called Metal on Metal back then?
No,
or?
it wasn't. Okay. I didn't have a show yet.
Okay.
I was just like, training.
Right.
And at the end, I made my fake show, and then they had to approve it. And the people at the station were like, what is this? They thought heavy metal was AC/DC, Ted Nugent, and Aerosmith. And I'm playing all this obscure underground new wave of British heavy metal. And they were like, we can't put you on the air. You can't play this. You have to play this other. This is what we think is heavy metal. And I'm like, look, I'm not going to do the show unless I can play what I want.
Right.
That's when I left. And that's when Mitch invited me down to WJC. So I got into WUJC and pretty much had freedom to play whatever I wanted.
Beautiful.
And there was a program director there who really believed in me, gave me a Friday night slot, and I've had it ever since. Then that, from the radio show, the next year, merged into my own record label, and it started in 1983. I put out a Cleveland Metal album with a friend of mine, Tim Stewart, from WCSB. I went to high school with Tim. He was not a metal fan, but he wanted to do like a record label project just to see what it was like and everything. And we put together this album called Cleveland Metal, which was a compilation of the Cleveland bands at the time.
Nice.
Nobody had ever done anything like this. And I got the idea from Mike Varney from Shrapnel Records. He had put out a compilation called U.S. Metal.
Right.
So I said, hey, let's call it Cleveland Metal. And again, back in those days, bands, it was hard to put out a vinyl record, very
Sure.
expensive. So a lot of bands
Still
only,
is.
yeah, a lot of bands only had cassette demos. They had reel-to-reel tapes, but there was no way for fans to buy these things. So these bands were bringing this stuff down to my radio show, and I always promoted local bands and had an open door. And so I said, hey, let's put together a record of these bands I'm playing on my radio show. And that's how it all started. The Cleveland Metal album was released. We didn't know what we were doing.
Did it do well?
Oh, it did great.
Yeah.
Oh, the thing was great. I didn't even know how to get an artist. I just happened to go into an art store in Shaker Heights, I think, and some woman was in the store shopping, and she says, oh, I'm an artist. I draw. I said, hey, cool. Can you draw us a cover? So she did. She did the cover. I didn't even know the woman. She wasn't even a metal fan. The album really did good. It especially took off in England, where Kerrang! And Metal Forces magazine
Right.
picked up on it. And there was bands like Black Death on there, Breaker, Shock Paris. These bands did really, really well for many years after.
Especially in Europe, then.
Yeah, and WMMS picked up the record. They
No
played
kidding.
a couple songs from it in regular rotation.
Very
So,
cool.
from that point on, Tim didn't want to continue doing a record label. So I said, I want to keep this going. So
Yeah.
I changed the name from Clubside Records, which was my street in North Olmsted,
Okay.
to Auburn Records, which Auburn was a street of my friend Patty Van Dusen in Maple Heights. I couldn't think of a name, and I thought, oh, that sounds pretty cool.
I always wondered where that name came from. More motorcycles. Woo! Dude, you can tell we're in Ohio in the summertime. They're just motorcycles everywhere. Damn it. Anyway.
Sorry, I talked too much.
No, that's great.
I've got a lot of history here.
Yeah.
I'm old.
So,
It's fascinating, actually.
Yeah.
It is.
yeah.
So, the first record, I'll tell you what, I went to about 8, 9, 10 banks. I couldn't get a loan. Nobody would. I had a whole business proposal, everything. I want to do this
Right.
record label. I had a little history with the Cleveland Metal record. The banks just didn't get it. I mean, they pretty much laughed me out of the water. So my mom stepped in, and she co-signed for a loan for me for $10,000. At
Gotta
the
love
time,
Mom.
that was a lot of money.
Heck yeah. It's a lot now.
And very risky, but my mom's always been a supporter. My dad never really understood what I was doing. He was
Right.
wondering when I was going to get a real job.
That's how it usually goes.
He was from another era,
Yeah.
and but he, my dad supported me, but he just didn't get it. My mom was totally behind me, and she co-signed for that loan, and then I started a label with that money, and just
Nice.
did it all myself.
Nice.
And when I say all myself, I paid all the recording, manufacturing, promoting, everything. And
Produced it,
bands
too.
didn't pay anything. And we were going into studios with 2-inch tape back then. It was
Yep.
$150 a reel for 15 minutes just for the tape. I was
Damn.
paying $85 an hour at these studios.
Yeah.
Beechwood, Suma. So the cost to make a record was astronomical.
Yeah. We did a record. Well, we did 2 albums on 2-inch tape, didn't
Mhm.
we? In the 90s with Jay.
Yeah.
We released one and then didn't release another one, which it's a shame. But it's crazy to even think how much the technologies have changed so much, because there's no 2-inch tape studios around here anymore. I mean, that's pretty vintage now. They're around, but I don't think they're around here. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah. Many fans
You don't
and
need 'em
musicians
anymore.
think it sounds better, doing analog recordings.
Sometimes
There's
it
a
does.
warmth to it.
Yeah.
There is a warmth to it.
I get it, but I'm all for the technology today too.
Yeah.
If you ever worked in a studio back then,
Yeah, it's a lot of
it
work.
was very difficult.
Yeah.
You you had 10 hands on the faders pushing them up and down at
Yep.
certain points during the mix.
It's
Now you
nothing
can
like
do
that.
that all on Pro Tools, automated.
Yeah, it's so easy to record now, especially if you're a solid band. You can just knock it out in a day or two. Really, all the basic tracking if you want to, depending on how many songs you're recording.
One funny story I remember about analog tape. We had I recorded Black Death for the Cleveland Metal album at Suma. Until We Rock was one of the songs. It was about a 7-some minute song. And the band, again, you couldn't fix things. So you had to play things through properly.
Right.
It was difficult.
Yep.
Well, we had these 2 versions of Until We Rock, and they had mistakes on both of them, at different spots. So we just had the music down. We didn't have the vocals yet. So the band played it live, and we had these 2 takes. They just couldn't get it right, They tried some more takes, didn't work, but we had these 2 decent takes, but they had mistakes. So the engineer said, hey, I can fix that. So he took the razor blade out. Now remember, this is 2-inch tape, and Paul Hammond is
This
like
is science right
he's
here,
a legend,
children.
a legendary engineer. The guy drank so much coffee and smoked boxes of cigarettes during the sessions. So he's got the gigantic cup of coffee going. He's got the cigarettes going. He's taking his razor and he is slicing this tape. There's tape all over the floor. I have no idea what he's doing. And he's patching together 2 songs into one to make it one. So he finishes, right? And he's doing it so fast, we're all just standing there with our
Freaking
mouths
out.
open.
Like, why are you cutting our tape up, man?
I know, and I'm paying all that money for the tape, and there's just a pile of it on the floor, and I'm like, oh my God. So
And he's like, check
Sicky
this out.
Spacek, the vocalist, goes into the vocal booth to do his vocals, and he puts this new assembled reel on the machine, and he starts to play it. Sicky starts to sing the song, and after the second chorus, it goes right into the ending, and
Oh,
Sicky's
no.
eyes get real big. He's like, so a 7-minute song went into like a 3-minute song.
He radio edited that shit
So
for you.
he messed up the edit, so he had to go back and like go through the garbage can and pull all this tape
Oh
out
my God.
and
That's
assemble it right.
Shit.
So that's what you had to deal with back then.
a skilled engineer, though,
It's like a surgeon.
Yeah, imagine having. Oh, I couldn't imagine having to do that now.
Yeah.
I don't think we ever cut our tape, did we?
No.
No, we were too scared.
Now remember, all the time I'm paying all that money for the tape, and I'm paying like $85 an hour, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm having the big one.
Bankruptcy, here we come. Must have worked out, though.
It worked out. Oh yeah, we got it right eventually.
Right on, yeah. Jeez, what an adventure. That's
That's
nuts.
a great time, great memories at Suma recording in Paynesville, and
Is that still
also-
there?
Oh yeah.
Is it?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. We really turned out my Breaker album was recorded there, my Shock Paris record, most of the Cleveland Metal album, Black Death, Purgatory.
At the time, was the major label helping you out? Was Auburn like a subsidiary? Is that a right word for it? Or did they distribute it? Or
Not in the very beginning. At the time at Warner Brothers, I had moved up from the warehouse I was working in the computer room. I was like the assistant running the computer.
Okay.
In the old day, now this is old
Yeah.
computers. They look like dishwashing
Yeah.
or wash machines. But that's what I was doing, and it's kind of a conflict of interest, I guess. I'm working at Warner Brothers,
Yeah.
and I'm running my own label on the side.
Right.
But the branch manager, Mike Spence, he really respected what I was doing, and
Right.
he knew there wasn't a conflict, and I was paying my own way through for that.
Right.
I only did it off hours. But
You would think like a smart, record executive that has an employee that is out there doing his own thing would kind of be a plus for that record label.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're kind of you could be kind of an A&R person for them if they were ever pick up somebody that, might have any potential.
Oh, yeah.
You could see it that way too.
Yeah, the Warner Brothers had their own pressing plant. It was called Specialty. They owned it. And I actually had my stuff pressed through them.
Nice. Yeah.
Which, they didn't do outside work, but Lenny Mahalik, he was one of the head guys there at Specialty, and he thought it was so cool that this young kid is doing his own heavy metal label working at the Warner office in Cleveland. And they said that they would press my music for me. So I was getting like really great rates. And also the quality from the Warner pressing plant was just amazing.
Yeah.
I could have never afforded, to do this with
Right.
an independent pressing plant.
Did they master that for you too?
No, back then I did Masterdisc and Sterling Sound in New York. Those are big name places. And I always
Yes, they are.
I
I've
always
heard of
went
them.
all out and spent for the mastering.
Yeah.
Because in the vinyl years, that was a very important
Oh, yeah.
part of the process, more so than now.
Well, the vinyl resurgence now, I think that's important. I think I'm encouraged by it because I think some people are getting tired of the MP3 thing,
Yeah.
They want actually to sit down and experience music how it is. And I think some of these remasters that they're doing now are amazing. Like the Led Zeppelin reissues that just came out.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody thought it was going to be a big money grab, but I bought the first 6 on vinyl because I've never found a decent Led Zeppelin copy because everybody played the shit out of those copies. Like my whole life, my whole teenage years, I was like looking for really good Led Zeppelin vinyl. I could never find it. And so Jimmy Page, he redid all these, remastered it, and it sounds, I've never heard Zeppelin sound better.
Mhm.
I mean, so when people do it right, it's a real good payoff with the new technology using the old technology. I don't know what they're doing now, but if you do it correctly, it sounds great, and it's much more rewarding, I think, the listening experience.
I agree. Led Zeppelin 4, is that the Zoso album?
Yeah.
That was my very first album I ever bought.
Yeah.
Alice Cooper, School's Out was my first single, but that Zoso album in 71.
How did that music sound back then? Because I think a lot of people that are around now don't understand how heavy that sounded, because there was nothing that sounded like it before. Like them and Black Sabbath, that probably sounded like pure Satan music back then.
Yeah,
I'm assuming.
The first song I heard from Zeppelin on the radio was Black Dog. And that song, if you know it, it really doesn't have a chorus that, says the title of the song.
Right, that's right. Yeah.
And they would play it on the radio, actually. It was actually on, FM radio, AM radio. And I never knew the title of the song because I never caught the DJ announcing it for a while. And there's no chorus that says Black Dog in it, really.
Yeah.
So I just knew it as the song with the echo. I always called it the echo song when I was a young kid.
Yeah.
So when I found out what it was, I went up and bought the album. And you're right. Even Led Zeppelin now may seem tame, but back then that was heavy stuff.
Yeah. Felt like you were going to hell, and it kind of felt good, I remember early 90s hearing Soundgarden for the first time, and before that was Metallica's And Justice for All. And I think within that time period of like between 1988 and 1991, 92, when like Soundgarden and like Pantera came out, that was heavy shit back then. Like, it was like, what the hell is this? It was a completely different thing. So I kind of like always took that perspective. It was like, well, how did the previous heavy metal band sound to the previous generation? It was probably wild, I'm assuming.
Yeah, music was my escape. I grew up on the west side of Cleveland.
Me too.
And, a lot of my friends, as I got older in my teen years, were getting in trouble and going down the wrong road.
Right.
And my parents divorced, when I was 13. We were the only family on the street that were divorced. It wasn't like today. It was a very embarrassing, kind of a tough situation for me to handle at that age.
Always is for kids.
And,
yeah, for sure.
I saw my friends going down that drug and alcohol route, and I just said, I remember it was almost like a light switch. Like overnight, I said, I'm not going that way.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
So I really absorbed myself in the music. I started collecting music, buying music.
Yeah.
And that was my escape.
How many records do you have now?
Well, I actually tried a couple years ago. I tried counting because one of my German friends.
I know you have a lot.
I stopped counting. I estimate counting all the 45s, the vinyl, the CDs, and the DVDs, the music DVDs, over 50,000.
50,000.
Yeah.
Your whole house is full.
Well, I had a storage unit I had to rent.
Oh, wow.
And everything is organized and alphabetized. But yeah, I used to have it, took over the basement. And in fact, when I moved from the condominium in North Olmsted in 1996, my one and only move, we filled up 2 gigantic 24-foot trucks of music.
Damn.
I mean, this stuff was stuffed in every nook and cranny of that condo.
That's
My
crazy.
friends to this day call that the move from hell. They will never help me move again.
Yeah.
They could not believe all the records that I had.
I have a couple hundred vinyl, and I dread moving them someday. couple milk cartons, 50,000. Jeez.
Well, there's a friend of mine in Germany, Matthias Rost, a long time, from my first friend ever in Germany. He corresponded with me back in the early 80s about Breaker. We've been friends ever since. I flew him over here once.
I was going to ask you that, how
he's
that
got
German
over
relationship started.
125,000.
Damn.
He lives in a very big house, and 5 rooms are filled with music. It dwarfs my collection.
That's insane.
Rock Hard Magazine did a feature on him. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah,
it really is.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So women collect shoes. I collect records.
Yeah.
But
some people
I
play-
never collected for money though. That's the one thing. There's some of my friends will collect just for money. They'll buy things. They won't even take it out of the shrink wrap. Oh, I can't listen to this.
Yeah.
I always bought for the music.
And listen to the shit
Everything
out
I
of it,
bought, I listened to. I never bought it because this is going to be rare.
Yeah. You probably have some rare stuff though, huh?
Oh yeah, sure.
So we've talked about, the history of Bill Peters and Auburn Records. Is there anything new and exciting going on? Is there anything you're excited about? Any projects coming up?
Yeah. Well, nowadays, I'm doing the label just on a part-time basis. I have a regular job, and I just put out an album by a band called Aftershock this year. Came out about a month or so ago. It's my first release this year. I'm trying to do about 2 or 3 albums a year if I can.
It's doing pretty well too, huh?
Yeah, and I'm really happy with it. This one took a while to record. This is the 3rd album for the band, and they have a new singer from Canada. Band is from Pittsburgh. Shock Paris singer used to be with them, Vic Hicks.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Now he's just Shock Paris.
Okay.
But yeah, we're doing really well with it.
Nice.
It's tougher to sell music nowadays, so I have to kind of watch my budgets.
So you're not taking them to the Wacken Open Air Festival this year?
Not this year. Never
probably
know
don't.
next year. I've been to Germany about 28 times.
Looks like
And
a cool
Wacken
place.
I've been to 7, which is amazing for a small label like me.
Yeah.
To have bands playing the biggest festival in the world.
I hear you're kind of a little bit of a celebrity. I hear you have like meet and greets and stuff out there.
I actually sign autographs in Germany.
Isn't
and
that weird? So
Yeah, it is funny. Only in Germany though, and Greece. We played it. We went to Greece, and but Germany is my second home.
Yeah.
And when I take the bands over, they're kind of shocked. People will come up asking me for my autograph, and they all tease me about that.
You're like, that's right, son.
It'd be hard to just not relocate there, with that kind of welcome,
I would love to live. I love Germany. I really do.
You ever think about moving there?
I've thought. Oh, of course.
Yeah.
I don't speak the language well enough yet. I understand, but I can't speak fluent. I love the country and the people and just the music and it's just a great place. Have you guys ever been over there?
Never.
I've never been overseas yet. I want to go. It's getting a little strange out there right now. I'm watching the world stage in Europe and seeing what's going on. I know Germany's having some problems, but hopefully they iron all that out soon.
Yeah, we've played the biggest festival in the world. We've played small ones. We've toured. One of my best trips was we did 2 weeks with Shock Paris and Eternal Legacy together, and we actually had a tour bus and everything.
Of course, Zach was one of my good buddies from my past job. He's a good dude.
Oh, okay.
John.
Yeah.
They're a guitar player, for those who don't know.
So I could, I could write a book on just my European adventures. So many things have happened, and
It would sell.
yeah. But of all the trips to Germany, one of my favorite trips to Europe was when we went to Greece in 2012. We headlined a festival in Athens, Shock Paris. It was my first time to Greece. I didn't have the network of people like I do in Germany, so I really
Right.
went in not knowing too many people. And Greece was in some trouble. They were going
Yeah.
through some economic
Right.
revolution.
Yeah.
In fact, right by our hotel, there was travel advisories not to go to Greece.
That's a brave thing to do.
Yeah, and we said, no, we're coming. And we went, and I'll tell you, the Greek people were so nice to us.
Probably exactly what they needed,
That-
little escape.
And these people were really struggling financially. They opened up their hearts to us. They
Yeah.
gave us anything we wanted. Gas was like $9.50 a gallon.
Whoa.
They're driving us all over the place, and just hospitality was unreal.
That's amazing.
And I can't wait to go back.
Yeah. Yeah. Now it makes me want to go.
Yeah, let's go now.
Let's pack it up. Let's go on a tour. My girlfriend went out to Ireland not too long ago, and she said, if you move the band out there, you could make a living because everybody's into live music. She said they went into a bar like at 5 p.m. somewhere in Dublin, and there was nobody there, and within a half hour, a band was set up, and the place was jam-packed, and everybody was into every song the band was playing, whoever they were. I can't even remember. I think they might have just been a cover band or whatever, but it's like that kind of thirst for music is missing in the United States. I wish we could drum that up somehow. I think it's probably getting a little bigger because they're starting to have the festival model of Europe, coming over here now with like things like Bonnaroo, and hopefully some smaller festivals in the U.S. will spring up in the years coming. It'd be nice to see.
The cultures are different.
Very.
It's the Europeans, my German friends get 4 to 6 week holidays. Every employee, doesn't matter how long you worked at a place, and you can take those in a row. So, in the summer,
You're chilling.
my German friends are just off work, and they're going to festivals or camping.
Yeah.
Here in America, I worked 26 years at Warner. I think I had 4 or 5 weeks, but I could never take more than a week in a row.
Right.
You had to be back at your job.
Right.
So it's a different culture over
Yeah,
there.
definitely.
And they love the outdoor open air festivals. In the summer. That's
so big.
They're everywhere, every weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool over there. I remember the first time we went to second trip, I think, to Vakken. We went into a Burger King over there, and when we got an order to go, and they put like an advertisement in your bag, and we pull it out. It was the Vakken Open Air Festival ad with like Overkill and Testament pictures. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm getting this advertisement at Burger King.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
McDonald's.
I wish there was that same sense of I don't know, music here. I feel like the scene is completely different. The local scene feels like it's struggled compared to what I hear about out there.
Yeah.
The festivals are just amazing, and you hear about like one festival here. I mean, they have the Voodoo Fest, which I think I'm going to this year down in Louisiana, and then what's the one they're having in California that Guns N' Roses played at?
What is that? That's Coachella.
Yeah,
But
Coachella.
that's passed already.
Music, in Europe, it's a priority to these people. It's not background music for a video game or for something else in your life. Music is a priority to them. They buy the music, they support the music, they know the lyrics to all the songs. My first release when I started, I took a few years off in the 90s at a label because we had 2 children, and I wanted to devote some time to my kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
But when I restarted a label up in the late 90s, my first release was a breaker, did an EP called Accept, and we had about 6 or 7 songs on it, and it was just like a advance for the album that was coming out, and we were going to Germany to play my first time, and I put this thing out, and it was great received, but to keep the costs down, and the budget, I wanted to keep the cost low for the EP, so I didn't put the lyrics in, and I just did a simple CD booklet.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
How do they?
I got
know
chastised by the Germans. Were like, oh, you have to put the lyrics. You have to put the lyrics.
Oh, okay.
Because the lyrics many Germans at a young age learned to speak English from music, from American music. They learned the songs, and that's how they actually helped them with their English. But the lyrics really mean a lot. When we went to Greece and played, people were singing all the Shock Paris songs. Even the new song. We had just put out a new song a week before we went on iTunes. They were singing that song when they played it.
I bet that feels so good.
Yeah.
You know?
You have 1,000 people singing Shock Paris songs. We were just like taken back. I'm talking loudly. I mean, where the singer, Vic, could just put the mic down and the crowd would sing the songs.
What do you think, without getting too deep or whatever, what do you think it is that makes it like that out there versus out here, to where it is background noise, it is, video game music, and over there they're emotionally involved, and here it's just, Is it oversaturation? Is it our culture? Do you have a take on what make the difference?
Well, life, in Germany is it reminds me of 1960s America. It's like Mayberry. It's less cluttered, People live a more simple life. They have less things and less toys, and I think that's one of the reasons there's space in their life to make music a priority. Here we have so many things. You go into anyone's house, it's cluttered with, and my house included, video games, DVDs, this, that. You go into a German's house, it's the first thing you notice, most non-cluttered. They don't have a lot of things. And I think there's just more space in their life to make music a priority. We have so many distractions here.
Yeah, like motorcycles.
Like the motorcycles.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and having less things means you probably have more money to spend on experiences rather than just material
Priorities.
shit. Yeah,
Right.
Well, that's been a good interview, I think, man. So you have the Aftershock CD out now. We'll play a song off of that.
Okay.
On this episode, every Friday night you're on WJCU.
Right, 6:30 to 9:30,
6:30
WJCU.org,
Metal on
88.7.
That's the name of the show.
And let's
Metal
see,
on
this
Metal.
is my 34th year of doing a radio show. So
That's
next
amazing.
year will be 35. So I guess we'll have to do some celebration, right?
Yeah, maybe a
35?
festival. Let's do it. Sign us up.
I'll have to
And
make a T-shirt.
every year, I know it's a few months off, but you do Christmas food drive, right? Wildly successful from what I've seen.
Yeah, and that's really close to my heart, that food drive we do in December at the Beachland, and it started in 2009, and it's just a free concert that, we
Yeah,
get
you just
local
don't-
bands to play, and people bring food donations for the Cleveland Food Bank and the Friends of the Cleveland Kennel. We take animal donations too,
That's really cool.
and it's exploded into this
Yeah.
huge event where we're receiving just unbelievable amounts. The heavy metal fans are the most generous
that's what I've always
when it comes to
said.
supporting good causes. And a lot of these people don't have a lot of money, but they save up during the year to bring food to this event. It's
Yeah, I've
really
been there.
taken on a life of its own, and I feel like we're giving something back to help our community.
I think the metal community does get a bad rep about stuff like that, tattoos and angry and angsty, but I've seen a lot of that, a lot of food drives and a lot of community
benefits for people who are sick
benefits.
and stuff like that. Yeah.
Well, we started that food drive, and now there's been a lot of offshoots from other people putting events together, suicide prevention, and all sorts of different good causes. And
That's
that's
great.
great, and I support all of those 100%.
Me and Paul have been we went to one food drive. Was it last year?
I thought it was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was jam-packed. It was awesome. Well, come back on when that's closer to happening again.
We
We'll
will.
promote
My
the hell
German
out of it.
friend Iron Ingo will be coming back in from Germany, and he's going to MC. He
I'm-
comes every other year.
I'm friends with him on Facebook. He seems like a real character. I think I said hi to him once. He's a cool guy. Well, let's definitely hook up and do that again. And again, watch Bill or listen. Don't watch. Listen to
Don't
Bill
watch
Peters.
me. I got
every
the
Friday
perfect
night.
face for radio.
Listen to Bill every Friday night on WJCU Metal on Metal. And thanks for coming out here and doing this, man.
Thank you very
Really
much.
appreciate it.
Bill.
Thank you.